Every artist thinks they're one project away from success. Until reality shows up with a stack of rejection letters. Today, you're going to hear a story that every creative needs to hear, especially if you're tired, discouraged, or wondering if you're falling behind. Welcome back to Like-Minded Arts. I'm Brent Lindstrom, and my mission is to help you go from struggling artist to working creative. In this episode, we're diving into the early writings and journey of Kira Hartley Klinger, an author who spent decades chasing publications the traditional way. Her story is raw, honest, and it reveals something most artists never learn until it's too late. The timeline to success is way longer than anyone tells you. Let's start at the beginning because Kira's creative identity formed early, and so did the challenges.
Thank you so much for having me, Brent.
What was growing up for Kira like?
Honestly, the only thing I ever thought of my entire life from the time that I can remember was being a writer. It just always was there. I never faltered and said, oh, well, maybe I want to be a doctor, or oh, maybe. It was always I want to be a writer. And it never left me. And so I didn't know what else to do with my direction other than try to figure out how I was going to make it work. So yeah, I grew up in a house with professionals. My mom was a behavior specialist, my dad a psychologist. My sister, she did a lot of fancy colleges and secondary education, and I just was on this trajectory. I want to write. It was all I wanted to do.
Can you hear it? That pure childhood certainty? And a lot of us start there. But passion doesn't automatically translate into a career. And Kira learned that the hard way. She talks about her first mystery, her first play, and her first run-in with writer's block. But listen closely, the seeds of resilience are already there. But what kind of things were you wanting to write at the time?
The first thing that I remember actually writing, I decided that I was going to write a mystery. And I must have been at the phase where I was reading, Nancy Drew or something. Because I was a prolific reader. I was always reading something. So I had a manual typewriter, and I was, pounding out the next great mystery. And, we had this bathroom that my sister and I shared. And my mom had redone this bathroom for us. I just remember there was fur carpet and fur on the walls. She just must have come into a really good deal on fur fabric. I don't know. But there was, whenever the light was out, there was this mysterious light that came through the corner of the room, up through the floor. And so I was like, I wonder what that light could mean, And so that was the basis of this mystery that I was writing, was about this mysterious light. And literally I got, I think, a page and a half of single-spaced type before I ran out of ideas. It was my first run-in with writer's block. I'm like, okay, I really wish I could find that. It's been so long now. But that was my first attempt. And then the second thing that I remember, I was in grade school, maybe about the 5th grade. I wrote a play for the class, and I was in charge of casting the play. And it was, all I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth, and, highly original, right? And then for whatever reason, it became a production that they wanted to put on for the parents. And so parents had been invited to see this play. Well, the lead character person didn't show up. And the only person available that knew the whole script was me. And I didn't want to be on stage. I never liked to draw attention to myself, ever. I didn't like talking in front of people. Nothing. And so I was mortified. But I had to play the part.
That moment right there, being forced on stage, terrified, that's the part nobody talks about. Creativity isn't just about talent. It's about confronting fear, embarrassment, and the feelings that you're not ready. Most artists quit right there.
So I remember that. And then, I guess later years in high school, composition class was always my favorite. I went to a Catholic high school. We had this one teacher that nobody liked. She was tough, but she also wanted a certain thing from people. And I think she knew that certain people were more capable of giving it than other people. So I think she pushed people that she thought had potential. She was a great teacher, but nobody liked her. Nobody could stand her. I adored her. She was my most favorite teacher in the world. And we got along famously, And when I
It's fun
graduated,
when you get a teacher that can actually see see behind just the lesson and see what the individual is.
yes, exactly. And she gave me a journal when I graduated, and that was, I think, that was 40 years ago. I still have that journal. It sits on my shelf. I mean, it just was like a prized possession, somebody that believed in me early on. But
That's awesome.
So
you started out always wanting to write, and you did write and things. That's interesting. How did you? So I know that like when I write, I don't actually memorize my lines. Like when you had to do that play, I mean, and you had to just jump in there. Did you have like the whole play memorized?
it was so long ago, I don't remember. I think the biggest thing I remember was just my fear. It's like, how, no, I don't want to do this, but nobody else could have done it. I wrote it, so I was nominated. It was horrible. I mean, my parents remember it differently, but I just remember the fear. I like the behind the scenes stuff. I don't like to be. I've changed. I've grown a lot in the last 40 years. Obviously, I'm here, but this would not have been me 40 years ago.
No, I completely agree. I was in my high school, or no, it was actually my junior high school. We had a math teacher, and he would assign a student every week to go up and teach the lesson, and I could almost just melt into the plastic seats because I did not want to ever. I mean, I was pretty sure that I would get up there and wet myself and say absolutely nothing if he ever had me come up and do the teaching for that week. And yeah, and now I'm hosting a podcast and I'm joining other people on their podcasts, and it's actually kind of fun. So yeah, you're not what you start out as often.
No, I agree. I'm having a lot of fun with it too, meeting a lot of great people.
So that's kind of how you started out then, and then once you got out of school, how did things kind of shape up from there? Because eventually you got into reselling. Was that kind of a hobby, or how did you of move into that?
So when I got out of school, I started a family pretty quick. I had 3 children. The desire to write never left me. I always still felt like this is something I'm going to do. This is something that I meant to do. I started writing resumes for people. I put an ad in the paper, and I did quite a few resumes, but at the time, all I had was a manual typewriter, so you mess up, take it out, start over. It was painful. And then I started to write to magazines started to propose writing articles to magazines. And so I started again on the manual typewriter. I was typing out all these letters. And I remember the day that I got my first invite from Women's Day magazine to submit my article, I was so excited. And so I sent the article out, and this is very big lesson learned in the industry. 10 days later, I'm dying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, come on. I haven't heard anything yet. This is ridiculous, And we didn't have email back then. It was all snail mail. So I called Women's Day, and I'm like, yeah, so I sent you an article about a week ago, and I was wondering, that thing flew back in the mail so fast, I swear it was express mail. Boom, done, rejected, no thank you. You have to be patient in this industry when you're dealing with the traditional publishing world, and it's very frustrating.
This is the part that hits every artist eventually: the waiting, the silence, the rejection, and the emotional cost of believing in something that isn't paying you back yet. If you've ever refreshed your email 40 times in a day, you probably know what I'm talking about.
It's hard to wait sometimes. I knew the schedule of the mailman. I knew that on Tuesdays, you really weren't going to receive anything significant in the mail. The average time to get something in the mail was 2 days. So Friday was the last work day. So if they mailed it on Friday, you'd likely get it on Monday. Well, Tuesday, nobody's mailing anything on the weekend. So that became known to me as Junk Mail Tuesday. And it really was. Every day, Tuesday, it was just junk mail. But Monday through Friday and Saturday, I would be stalking the mailman. At one point I decided, okay, I always kind of lean towards fiction. I like to make things up in these dramatic storylines. So I started writing novels. And again, this is in my 20s and my 30s. And after my first novel, I was able to get an agent. I can't say he was the best agent in the world, but he did get me some reads with some notable editors. The most memorable thing, he got me a read with a major editor at Warner Books, and she had my manuscript for an entire year before she turned it down.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of stalking the mailman. You know, it was driving me crazy. So I wrote 3 more books after that. These were all like 400-page contemporary novels, and I just never was able to sell any of them.
A full year waiting on a single editor, a decade of effort, and still no breakthrough? Come on, this is why so many creatives burn out. Not because they're not talented, but because the timeline is brutal.
And at one point, I just got so frustrated that my agent seemed to have lost interest in my project that I decided to cancel my relationship with him. And he couldn't even find the copies of my books that I had sent him to send back to me. So there was a lot of learning in that process, and it was a long decade.
So what do we learn from Kira's first decade? Simple. If you want to be financially secure as an artist, you can't rely on one project, one publisher, or one moment. You need resilience, patience, and a plan. In the next episode, we're going to talk about how Kira built that plan and how a side hustle unexpectedly became her creative lifeline. Check it out in the description below. If you want to find out more about Kira, check the link in the description. And also, if you want to catch the whole interview, go on over to my podcast at the Light-Minded Arts Podcast. There you can see the whole interview, not just the short snippets that I've shown you here. I'll see you next time.